Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith, and you're watching another episode of Overbooked, the series where I talk about every single book on my shelf because, oh no, because I can't think of anything better to do with my free time. Yeah, today's a little bit different. If you watched last week's video, you will know that I filmed my review for the Wayfarers series and then was kindly pointed out by a friend that I was including a book in that series that was not in fact in that series, and I realised that I would need to make a separate video for that book to be reviewed in, or something that makes sense like that. So I'm doing the unthinkable, and I'm filming that review now for that other book. I am filming it without any notes, without a plan. I've gone rogue. That book is To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. I've gone wild. I'm just going to do it. Nobody can stop me. Some quick disclaimers before we start. I don't think I had a review copy of this book, but it is entirely possible that I had it on NetGalley. I did, however, buy a copy of it at full price. Regardless of where books come from, all opinions are my own. Nobody's paying me to talk about books. I'm also not going to spoil anything for you. I hope that goes without saying. This is a novella. I'm just not going to do that. But if you do want to go in knowing absolutely nothing about anything, including plot, characters, whatever, click away now. This is a sci-fi novella. It came out from Becky Chambers in I'm gonna guess, I think it was 2019. This is by Becky Chambers. I mentioned her last week because I was reviewing her bigger series, but she's probably most well known for writing the Wayfarers series, A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and so forth. However, this is a standalone novella, which I now know it is. It's a standalone novella. Becky Chambers is an American author. She's based in California. She lives there with her wife. She has a very space science focused family, which is, I think, where she draws a lot of inspiration from. This novella is written in first person, and it's basically a report that has been beamed back to Earth, effectively, of this team who are out in the universe, and they basically land on various planets, document them, look at the life, create reports, send them back, and then move on to the next planet. And in between planets, they are basically in kind of like a cryostasis, and during that time they are somniformed, which basically means that while they're asleep, their bodies slightly change in order to adapt to the place that they're going. So for instance, if they were going somewhere that had very little light, their skin would change to react to lower light. And the book, broadly speaking, is just them going to 3 planets and them documenting that time, and then it kind of ends with a wider question that I don't want to spoil for you. One of the things that inspired this book was a look at, I can't remember what the term is, I'm going to check though, because why not, I'm here. Citizen-funded spaceflight efforts, which is basically like, rather than being private or government-owned, citizen-funded. And it takes this idea of people who are funded to go out into space and just do research for the sake of it, and this glorious idea, but how does that work when they're so far away, light years away from Earth, and they're getting the news much later than when things actually happen. So gradually they get the news that, you know, whole countries have toppled or whatever, but by the time they get the news, it's already happened ages ago and they're already behind the times. I really love the writing style. I don't normally like first-person narrative, but for some reason this character just really works for me. I like the way that she describes things, I like the way that she experiences the world, and I think part of that is because it's sort of semi a report. It doesn't mean it's in really like bland scientific language, but it does mean that you get the information in a way that makes sense, whereas sometimes you get diary entries and you think, there is absolutely no reason someone would write this down. No way that somebody would include this in a diary. But in a scientific report kind of context, it makes a bit more sense. I also really like the idea of somniforming. I think that the way Becky Chambers goes, what would human space exploration look like if we were doing it without this kind of we must conquer space kind of attitude? So that's all to do with how they try and leave no trace where they go, and they try not to kill anything or affect the environment in any way, and they are just there to document, and it's a really sort of pure look at that. And the way that interacts with some of the challenges that the characters have within the book is just really powerfully done and surprisingly emotional in a way that I wasn't necessarily expecting it to be the first time I read it. I think the bigger questions that this novella poses are really cleverly done in that they don't feel preachy, they don't feel, oh, aren't I being clever, which Becky Chambers never does. It just feels really natural, but they feel like you come to them on your own as a reader, and I'm sure that's intentional, but I think that some of the ideas about what do we want from scientific research and how can we explore and not leave a trace, and how can we acknowledge that humans are not the most important life forms in the entire galaxy in this context, or even the universe beyond galaxies. It works so well. I often say I like a novella that has, I always forget what it is just as I'm about to say it. I want it to have substance but also be succinct, and this book definitely does that. It has a plot within the book. If you wanted to just read it for plot, you could, and you'd have a good time, but it also has a lot of these open-ended questions that get you thinking, which is what I want from a novella. I'm not surprised that I thought this was part of the Wayfarer series until last week when I'm filming this, because it does fit in with a lot of those ideas and it fits in with a lot of the themes. I suppose that humans in the Wayfarer series aren't as potentially kind as this book maybe makes them out to be, but other than that, I think you could plausibly believe it is part of that and it wouldn't necessarily ruin it. But if you do like that series and you like that kind of gentleness that they have, I think this novella would be really good for you. It's potentially like a tiny bit more action-packed, in that a few more very exciting things happen, and obviously it's in a shorter period of time, but it still has that sort of like, you're just being carried through the plot rather than the plots jump into places and you couldn't expect where they were going. I don't think I have any cons for this one. I really like Becky Chambers' writing. I suppose if you don't like novellas, you might not like this, but I think that they are something that you have to read very differently to how you would read a full-length book. That's all I'll say. Comparisons, always difficult to compare things to Becky Chambers, as ever, but I was wondering about actually Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I was just thinking about this because of the diary entry thing and that idea of things being reported but in a way that makes sense for them to be written down. That's a strange connection I've just drawn. Novella-wise, I have some favourites. I always bring up Burning Roses, I always bring up Upright Women Wanted. I just really like them as novellas. I have a bunch more novellas to read, so hopefully by the time this goes up I will have got through more of that stack. But also Children of Time would be a really interesting one to read just for that kind of time slip effect that you get. Final thoughts, should you read this? I think if you've already read Wayfarers and you just want to go, no, do I pick that up as well? My answer is yes. If you enjoyed those, you'll enjoy this as well. I don't think I would be dashing out to buy a copy because it's the best novella that's ever been written in the world. If I wasn't already a Becky Chambers fan, I probably wouldn't have picked this up, but I do think it's really worth reading, and I think it would be something that if I, and I do own it, but if we were no longer in a pandemic, I would probably be lending it out to people and being like, hey, this is something interesting to pick up. That's probably where I'm at with it. Or if it's ever in a Kindle sale, I mean, that's always a good time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was okay without notes. I think it's going to end up being like 5 minutes long. What can you do? It's not a long book. How much more am I meant to talk about? If you have any other novella recommendations, stick them in the comments below. Equally, any sci-fi, basically recommend whatever you want. I'll probably add it to my wish list. What can I say? While you're down there commenting, you can also subscribe and follow me on all of my social media. Both of those things will make me feel loved and appreciated, especially since I had to film these videos twice and I'm feeling a little bit bitter about it. It's fine. That is all from me, and I will see you in the next one, which I will have done from actual notes, like a pro. There's gonna be some bloopers now. Get relayed the information.